Okay, guys, hello. Uh, First of all, I hope y'all are all doing okay. I know this is strange. Yes, it is. It's strange for me too. But we're going to try and make the best of this situation. So y'all be patient with me while I'm doing this recording. It feels really strange to be speaking to a video camera on my computer rather than you guys. Um, but anyway, you might notice, how does this work? You might notice I'm in the Shire today. I discovered that we can choose backgrounds for where we lecture from. So I'm open to suggestions about where my next lecture location should be. So right now we're at the Shire. Those of you who have read or seen Lord of the Rings probably recognize it. We gotta do what we gotta do to be happy during this time. Anyway, so here's how things are gonna work. I'm gonna try and do these videos pretty regularly for you guys. I'm gonna try and do them in chunks. So like, for example, this one is gonna cover chapters 1 through 5. It's not an ideal system. There is no way that we're going to be able to cover the amount of material that we would have if you guys were in class, but we're going to do the best we can. And if all you take away from this is that at all times you should resist totalitarian regimes, then I'm happy with it. So I'm going to do my best to kind of give you a quick summary and some major points for each chapter. And you'll probably at the end have like a little poll or something. I think I'll probably upload this as an Edpuzzle and you guys can just interact with it that way. I did have a question earlier from somebody that I thought I would address here. And that is, unless otherwise noted, all assignments are going to be for completion. So get your assignments done. Again, I'm always going to defer it to whatever's in your best interest. But make sure that you get these assignments done. So let's go ahead and get started with chapter 1 of 1984. So the opening lines are really important. We already kind of looked at that. But for each chapter, I'm going to establish a theme. I'll probably also put some kind of typed version of this up. So actually, yes, I'm making a decision now. So you might want to pause this video and go and access the notes that I've posted on Moodle titled Chapter 1 through 5 Notes. And then it'll just be helpful for you to follow along while we're working. So chapter 1 starts out, it was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. The theme for chapter 1, and I've got notes off to the side, so if you see me looking, that's what I'm doing. Chapter 1 introduces the idea of Big Brother, who watches and knows everything about the citizens, and the intense propaganda waged by the government and the total control over citizens' lives. So that's kind of the theme we're working with here in chapter 1. This idea that this is a world in which the government exercises complete control over its citizens and dictates exactly what they can and cannot do. Is this sounding familiar? It's freaking me out. Anyway, so weird. Anyway, when we first meet Winston Smith, I would like to note that that's kind of meant to harken back to Winston Churchill. So if Winston Churchill is sort of this amazing figure with his last name evoking images of things that are beautiful and wonderful like churches and hills, Winston Smith is meant to seem very like mediocre, very average, very normal citizen. So we see that the clocks are striking 13. A lot of you had really great answers to this from the Edpuzzle from last week, where you all sort of rightly noted that either this means that the society that we're talking about here is on military time, or, and I like this interpretation better, that there's some kind of disorder there. If you look at the round face of a clock, we have 12 hours, right? To have a 13th hour indicates, at least metaphorically, that there's something out of order about this world, right? There's something strange about this world. And the normal way that we understand things has been disrupted. So we meet Winston as he walks into his apartment. We see the face of Big Brother, and I'm going to try and do something fancy here. If it doesn't work, oh well. I wanted to show y'all this. Oh, of course, I can't find it now. Oh, goodness. Let's see. Maybe this one will work. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is the image that Winston encounters. This is sort of an illustration. You can see it's very Stalin-esque, right? Big Brother is watching you. So you can imagine this posted all over the setting that we see in chapter 1. So then Winston goes into his apartment. We see the telescreen, and this is a really important thing that's going to be recurring throughout the entirety of the novel, the presence of telescreens. There's never a room in which telescreens are not present. indicating that all of the citizens are always being watched, always being viewed, always being taken note of. It says on page 3, the telescreen received and transmitted simultaneously. Any sound that Winston made above the level of a very low whisper would be picked up by it. Moreover, so long as he remained within the field of vision, which the metal plaque commanded, he could be seen as well as heard. There was, of course, no way of knowing whether you were being watched in any given moment. How often, on what system the thought police plugged in on any individual wire was guesswork. It was even conceivable that they watched everybody all the time, but at any rate, they could plug in your wire whenever they wanted to. You did live from habit that became instinct, in the assumption that every sound you made was overheard and, except in darkness, every moment scrutinized. So we have to think about the kind of psychological manipulation that occurs when this type of surveillance is happening. And you can look at the slogan on page 4 that they give you, the slogans of the party: war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. This kind of contradiction that we're going to see a lot, and it indicates the level of psychological control. It's not enough really just to have physical control over your citizens. If you want to really exert your power and really, really solidify your regime, you have to exert psychological control as well. The party's done that through these slogans, and then we're introduced to the ministries. This is again on page 4. The Ministry of Truth, which concerned itself with news, entertainment, education, and the fine arts. The Ministry of Peace, which concerned itself with war. The Ministry of Love, which maintained law and order. And the Ministry of Plenty, which was responsible for economic affairs. Their names in Newspeak: Many True, Many Pax, Many Love, and Many Plenty. So we see that everyone is operating as though they're always being watched. Any kind of minuscule act of rebellion is going to be punished. When Winston takes out the diary and writes on page 7 in small, clumsy letters, he wrote April 4th, 1984, he is immediately overcome by a sense of complete helplessness. And later on, when he writes later, he knows that the act that he just committed of writing in the diary is an act that's not only treasonous, but is probably going to get him killed as well. And this kind of fatalism is really important. So moving into chapter 2, this type of fatalism is really essential to Winston's character. The moment he acts against the party, he knows he's a dead man. There's also a strong emphasis in chapter 2 on underlying emotions and the subconscious. So we meet the Parson family. You see that children have been sort of weaponized against their parents. And you also see, this is going back to chapter 1, you also see the 2 minutes hate, right? This moment where individuals are gathered together in 2 minutes of hate against Emmanuel Goldstein. There's a lot more that we could go into here. I really hope we have the opportunity to talk about some of these ideas later, but for right now, we'll just kind of mention that as something passing. And you notice on page 18, I think this is still in chapter 1. Yeah, this is the very end of chapter 1. You'll notice in chapter 18 that sort of subconsciously, Winston doesn't even know what he's writing in the journal. When he ends up writing is down with Big Brother, down with Big Brother, down with Big Brother, and he writes that over and over and over again. There's something happening in Winston's subconscious that is beyond his control. And that's very dangerous for him, because the safest way to be in this type of society is completely in line with authority. On page 19, he says, the thought police would get him just the same. He had committed, would still have committed, even if he had never set pen to paper, the essential crime that contained all others in itself, thought crime, they called it. Thought crime was not a thing that could be concealed forever. You might dodge successfully for a while, even for years, but sooner or later they were bound to get you. So this idea of thought crime is something that I want you to think about too. I mean, I think this is something that we deal with in our society today. The idea that certain thoughts, right, even things that we think, even the way that we go about thinking about things can be thought crime, right? This is a really popular thing right now. People spouting out tolerance and saying that we should be tolerant of everything, absolutely everything, except for ideas that they disagree with, right? And that you can be punished for a thought crime. This is really the discussion that's surrounding free speech, right? Should I be punished for the things that I think and therefore say? Looking again at chapter 2, we first see Winston discuss Julia, right? the woman that he's strangely attracted to, but really can't interact with. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the text. She's going to come back around. We see the Parsons children, as I said, they've sort of been weaponized against Winston. And this shows the impact on the family, right? That the family unit has been completely decimated. And then the last thing we see in chapter 2 is Winston coming up in, O'Brien coming up in Winston's dream, saying, "We shall meet in the place where there is no darkness." This is on page 25. O'Brien is a really important figure. Again, we're going to kind of put a pin in him until a little bit later, but he's going to come back. So Julia and O'Brien are two characters that haven't made much of an appearance yet, but we want to make sure to come back to them. Chapter 3, looking into chapter 3, we see Winston dreaming of his mother. Okay, so this is, number one, a really important insight into who Winston is, right? So there's sort of a prophetic nature of Winston's dreams. He dreams that he's responsible for his mother's death, and then he moves into this new place that he calls the Golden Country. I want you to go back and read the passage on page 30, starting with, "Suddenly he was standing on short, springy turf on a summer evening when the slanting rays of the sun gilded the ground." This Golden Country is going to be a place that refers back to that statement that we just talked about, the place that there is no darkness. And he's actually going to visit there with Julia in just a few chapters. Last thing I want to look at in chapter 3 is this idea: who controls the past controls the future, who controls the present controls the past. Winston's job, as we're going to see in a little bit, is to basically rewrite history. And you're going to see in chapters 4 and 5 that this is something that the party does quite frequently. They will rewrite certain aspects of their history or facts that have occurred in order to make themselves seem like they're doing a better job than they are. We're going to skip ahead a little bit if I can see the passage. Let's see. On page 58. Okay, so this is when the big brother has announced that chocolate rations have changed. This is in the middle of page 58. It says, "It appeared there had even been demonstrations to thank Big Brother for raising the chocolate ration to 20 grams a week. And only yesterday," he reflected, "it had been announced that the ration was to be reduced to 20 grams a week." Was it possible that they could swallow that after only 24 hours? Yes, they swallowed it. Parsons swallowed it easily with the stupidity of an animal. The eyeless creature at the other table swallowed it fanatically, passionately, and with a furious desire to track down, denounce, and vaporize anyone who should suggest that last week the ration had been 30 grams. So you see this kind of manipulation, again, going back to that idea of psychological manipulation of the people of Airstrip 1, which is where this takes place. The idea that in reality, the truth is that last week the rations were 30 grams of chocolate. This week they've been reduced to 20. But the party has manipulated the thinking of its citizens so much that they're able to just state and convince without much effort their citizens that actually they've raised the ration of chocolate to 20 grams. And now the citizens are so thankful to Big Brother for this act of generosity that it makes them feel very grateful to the oppressor, who is Big Brother. So Winston seems strangely aware of this type of thing. We see the party in operation, we see the calculated propaganda, and we see how controlling Big Brother actually is. On page 35, I know we're kind of jumping back and forth here, but going back to page 35, it says, bottom of that first paragraph, reality control, they called it in Newspeak, doublethink. I want you to underline, highlight, put an exclamation point, whatever, next to the idea of doublethink. This is really important. And we're going to get a little definition of it here in a minute. Winston sank his arms to his side and slowly refilled his lungs with air. His mind slid away into the labyrinthine world of doublethink. To know and not to know. To be conscious of complete truthfulness while telling carefully constructed lies. To hold simultaneously two opinions which canceled out, knowing them to be contradictory and believing in both of them. To use logic against logic. To repudiate morality while laying claim to it. To believe that democracy was impossible and that the party was the guardian of democracy. To forget whatever it was necessary to forget, then draw it back into memory again at the moment when it was needed, and then promptly to forget it again, and above all, to apply the same process to the process itself. That was the ultimate subtlety, consciously to induce unconsciousness, and then once again to become unconscious of the act of hypnosis you had just performed. Even to understand the word doublethink involved the use of doublethink. And this is really the way that the party controls its citizens, through doublethink. It is the ability to hold two contradictory ideas in your mind at the same time, to understand that they're contradictory, and yet to willfully do away with the notion that they are contradictory at the same time. It's a little bit heady, it's a little bit trippy, but it's really important that we understand this idea. We're going to be focusing on this idea of doublethink in some of the activities you guys are going to do this week. So keep that in mind. Doublethink is crucial to the way that the party is able to control its citizens. In fact, Winston really engages in a lot of doublethink because it's his job to go back and rewrite news articles that don't agree with reality anymore. So Winston sort of gets this idea, or Winston gets insight into the way that the party works more than others. In fact, on page 60, Winston's talking about like how horrible the conditions are, and the conditions, the living conditions in Airstrip 1 are absolutely terrible at this point. And so it's the party uses doublethink in order to convince its citizens that they actually have it a little bit better than they do. But Winston notes something strange on the bottom of page 59. And though, of course, it grew worse as one's body aged, was it not a sign that this was not the natural order of things? If one's heart sickened at the discomfort and dirt and scarcity, the interminable winters, the stickiness of one's socks, the list that never worked, the cold water, the gritty soap, the cigarettes that came to pieces, the food with its strange, evil taste, why should one feel it to be intolerable unless one had some kind of ancestral memory that things had once been different? So the idea here is that there is something inside of these people, particularly Winston, that instinctively tells Winston that life has not always been like this, nor should life be like this now. That there is something better that the human body responds to, that the human soul longs for. There's something better than what the party is offering. Okay, and so looking at chapter 5, we meet Syme, we see Winston interacting with his coworkers. We get a really interesting description of Newspeak from Syme in chapter 5, talking about how he's eliminating language. This is kind of what we were talking about when we played Taboo the other day. And I'm not going to be able to find the passage now. Oh, yeah, here it is on page 52. I want you to go back and read that passage. Don't you see the whole aim of Newspeak is to narrow the range of thought? That's essentially what we were talking about the other day when we played Taboo. Good. Think of it in this here. This has been a little bit clumsy. I know. I understand it. Thank you for making it through this video. Make sure you've answered the questions that I've posted along the way. Hopefully I will improve at this as we continue on. I really miss having you guys in front of me. Y'all are so fun to talk to about these types of things, and I was really looking forward to going through 1984 for you. But all is not lost. We're going to be fine. We're going to get better. I did have plans for Anne-Marie to join us in this video, but she's napping right now, so we're going to let her sleep. But number one, make sure that you answer the questions in this video. Make sure that you've reviewed our activities for the week. You know that you have until Friday at noon to get all of your assignments done. And if you have any questions, I will be available on GChat and email 8 to 10 every single day. And even if it's beyond those hours, I'm really trying to check my emails frequently and get back to you guys as soon as I can about all of this stuff that you're having to do. So hang in there. We also are going to be continuing our Lenten book study. If you want more information on that, email me. You guys can access the book on Kindle. And really, even if you haven't read the book, you're just like kind of anxious for company or whatever, email me and I'll give you the link to join our meeting. We're going to be doing that on, oh, I'm just realizing that it is past. Well, you can still join us for this week. We're going to be doing it on Wednesdays from 10 to 10:30, and then another session at 11 to 11:30. So you can join either of those. You guys are superstars. I love you. You're wonderful. I'm here. Let me know if you need me. Thanks, guys.